Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, and here we are again.
Howdy ho!
Howdy ho!
Howdy ho, children!
All right. Well, I think we can dispense with what have we been doing, given we just had a 5-minute break from our last episode.
I was going to say, are you over COVID?
No, not yet, sadly. Somehow I feel much the same as I did in the last episode, yeah. But are we drinking anything different this time?
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
I'm upgraded.
What?
I'm now on a Coke Zero.
Oh, look at you.
Graduated from soda water to Coke Zero.
Oh,
You need to calm down.
I probably do.
Well, similarly, I'm on a Pepsi Max. So
Whoa, that is very similar. We're on a similar path.
Wow.
What about you guys?
One of you has COVID. We have literally just poured the last of the leftovers.
Oh.
So,
good.
Yeah. Who knows? We might go on to something else, or we might go,
to bed.
Let's keep Monday nice and just stick on the water.
Oh, you got a big week ahead of you, boys.
It depends on the story that you tell, Carla.
Oh,
if it's one of
that
those
is-
traumatic ones.
No, I don't know if it's traumatic. It's I found this story and I am a little bit obsessed with it, but I think that's because I've never heard of it before, and I fear that, well, not fear, I think that both of you will have heard of it because it's an Australian-based story.
Oh, nice.
And I wasn't here when it was in the press, and it was a big story. So I'd be surprised if you haven't heard of it. I suspect you both have. Not that you're necessarily here, Schmitty. I think you may have been. I don't know, but I suspect for most Australians, it would just be something they had heard of and were aware of.
Brilliant. Should we introduce ourselves first,
Oh,
or should
we
we just
could do
get
that.
stuck into
We
it?
could do that.
I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey, and
And
together we are Trial by Wine. And Diet Coke and soda water.
Absolutely, yeah.
And COVID.
To be perfectly honest, I should be getting sponsorship, shouldn't I? We should get Coca-Cola.
Yes, send them a message. If drinking Diet Coke was an Olympic sport, you would be representing Australia for sure.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if you can... Oh, I suppose you can represent more. I need summer and winter because I'm also representing Australia in sleeping. I'm also very good at that. I can sleep anywhere. I can sleep on a floor. It doesn't really matter. If there's any motion involved, whether it be, car, plane, train, I'm out. I am the worst person to travel with because I am just asleep. I struggle staying awake, getting to my kids to school. I'm like, oh, so warm in this car. It's so comfy. And my eyes are,
I wonder too, though, like, you know how you have in the running, you have like the 100 metres and the 200 metres and the 400.
What events would I specialise in?
In the Diet Coke, there'd be the little cans, the big cans, the buddies, the bottles.
Oh, no, I've been very clear with you before. I've been very clear with you before.
Yeah, I know.
I will only work.
Nobody.
She's a sprinter. She doesn't do the marathon.
Exactly. I'm not doing the
small little boutique style can. I'm not in the buddy. That's like they're your heavy lifters. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You're the bantamweight.
Absolutely. I'm just like the little what's it called? Flyweight? I don't know.
Flyweight.
I was trying to say
opposed to flight risk.
Weight, and it was coming out as flyway, and I was like, this wasn't coming out quite. Anyway, so as I mentioned, it's an Australian-based case, and Australian.
Mm-hmm.
And what I sort of want to do is I'll tell you the sources that I've used, and then I want to start off by sort of painting this sort of picture because it really speaks to me, and perhaps it felt like it could have happened around me. It felt like something that felt reminiscent of the back end of school, where I grew up, going to university, the people that I was exposed to. And when I watched, I was like, wow, that could have happened to one of my friends or been something that was happening to someone I knew. They just felt familiar, I guess, in that sense. And I found that kind of really interesting. So
a bit like The Castle.
A lot like The Castle, yes. Although I do think that's a bit more particular for you people in Victoria. I think that must be very close to the heart.
Yeah, we do go to Bonnie Doon.
Absolutely. So we will call this the curious case of Kellie Lane. Have you both heard of Kellie Lane?
Oh, I know the name.
Once I start talking about it, I'm sure you will.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Anyway, I hadn't, and I mean, having seen what I've seen since and when I started looking at different sources, I'm kind of surprised that I haven't, but I guess it's just because I wasn't here at the time. So the sources that I've used are the Newcastle Herald, mamamia.com. Of course, I've gone to Wikipedia, but I'm a little bit incensed because the way that they've set it out is not in the chronological order. And I'm like, oh, darn you. And that's the hardest part of me, how I put this story together for you. You'll like this news source, people. Woman's Day. Hello, I know.
Is that even still around?
If I can just show you, there you go. It's not that I actually have an issue with me, but they must have like an online
presence,
I guess is what. Anyway, so I'm looking, and when I went back to source what the website was called, and I was like, oh, what's that called? And it's called Now to Love. N-O-W.
Oh yes, I was reading something on Now to Love the other day. It's Women's Day, but yeah.
Yes, and then I printed out.
What do you mean?
And sure, there on the top it says Women's Day. I'm like, oh my God, that's hysterical. So
it was the Widow of Walcher. There was a story about the Widow of Walcher on Now to Love.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Women's Day, and
has rebranded to Now to Love.
Well, their website is. It seems to be.
I don't get that.
What does even that mean?
I
don't know.
Now to
I
Love.
don't read the Women's Weekly, but I thought or Women's Day, but I thought maybe, Carla, did you get the sense it was maybe a subsection, like they have a serial
in editorial,
like sort of stuff in the magazine, and this stuff ends up on this website,
something like that,
on the dark web.
But yes, I know what you're saying.
Women's Day have a dark web presence.
Oh God. Oh, anyway, so. And finally, my last source was actually a 3-part documentary series that was done by the ABC, and it's called Exposed, the Case of Kellie Lane. And it was basically a well-known journalist that, of course, I've never heard of, but probably every other Australian has, called Caro Meldrum Hannah. That's a tricky name, isn't it? Imagine telling people that was your name when parts of your name are famous. Like we have a very famous person in Australia with the surname Meldrum. But that's only part of a hyphenated surname with another name that's actually a woman's first name. I think that would be a very difficult name.
It sounds like you've played her name backwards.
I know. Caro is her first name.
Hannah Meldrum Caro would be better.
Hannah. And I thought, I've never heard of her either. But again, I'm not surprised by that.
No.
But she is the person behind this documentary.
I'm sure she's great.
Anyway, so there we go. So as I said, the curious case of Kellie Lane. So I'll start with Kellie and Kellie being born in Manly in New South Wales, which is a beautiful beachside suburb in Sydney for our international listeners. And it was always a sort of a bit of a mix, Manly, like as a lot of beachside suburbs in Australia are. A lot of them weren't particularly affluent at different points. You know, people who had lots of money sort of lived somewhere else. But as the lifestyles changed and people wanted to be outdoors more, it became a real mix. So in any of these sort of beachside suburbs, you'd have wealthy people, you'd have the not so well off people, you'd have sports people, but lots of people, a lot of things that drew them to the area would be this sort of outdoor lifestyle. So it's, imagine a very sunshiny, outdoorsy life.
What year is this?
This is in 1975, and she was born on March 21, 1975.
Do you want to hear my dad's Manly joke?
Yeah.
So when Stuart and I met, we went up and visited my dad. He was living in Sydney at the time in Balmain.
Yep.
And so he went off to work and we went off and did a bit of sightseeing. And when we came back, he said, how was your day? We said, yeah, it was really good. We went over to Manly. And for anyone who doesn't know, there's a ferry that goes over to Manly. And so Dad goes, so did you get the Manly ferry? And then this is what my dad used to do. So then when we were just like eye rolling, going, I think I'm going to vomit. Then he starts nudging me and going, get it, Manly ferry, get it. I'm like, I fucking get it.
Got it the first time.
You're going to get it in a minute.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, every time I hear Manly, I think of that. It's terrible.
So Kellie was born to Ron and Sandra Lane, and Ron was a well-known sort of man in the area. He was a local policeman. He was also a rugby player and a surfer. So if you think about, what people sort of prize for a better word, in these sort of, outdoorsy, strong, golden communities in terms of living in the sunshine, whatever else. I imagine that he would have been quite well known and well respected, because he kind of covered all those manly pursuits, surfing and rugby and a copper.
Yeah.
So, the family were very well known and very well liked and admired. So this gorgeous daughter, Kellie, and Kellie is just a natural athlete herself. And I've seen so many photos of this gorgeous blonde child, golden, skin from being in the sun, fair blonde hair, and who was excellent at pretty much every sport she turned her hand to. But she was certainly in a surf club. I also saw her, she was doing netball, surfing, running. It didn't really matter what she did. She was just a natural athlete and represented her school and sometimes a state in the sports that she was doing. So throughout her childhood and certainly in high school years as well, she was really known in the local area as a very good athlete. And I guess people were sort of wondering where her talents would lead her and what she would actually end up pursuing, because I think she was a bit of a jack of all trades. It's also really interesting, like when I look at a lot of the footage that they've got, it really reminds me of growing up in Wollongong. And at the time it was like when that whole life-saving movement became really big. Remember that there was Uncle Toby's and the Nutrigrain series.
Yeah, Grant
so
Kenny
it was a there was
Lisa Curry Kenny.
Correct. There was a real moment where strong-looking people. It wasn't clubbies, as I would call them. They have a certain look. Lots of them look like swimmers. They've got the big shoulders, teeny tiny waist, really strong, but not thin little weaklings.
No,
they're
athletic.
very athletic. And big people. It's not like if you put them on the scales, they'd weigh a lot. They're big, muscular people, but they've got incredible physique. So I'm painting that picture. So that is very much what Kellie looked like by the time she was, like a late teenager. And she ended up pursuing water polo. And she was very, very good, certainly, local and state level. And it was the sport that she pursued and was brilliant at. And I've seen people interviewed and they always said that she wasn't the greatest, but she had absolute grit and she was unstoppable because she just...
Competitive.
Absolutely. It was all about that real guttural kind of, I'm not going to stop. She could just literally...
Mongrel.
She
She
could
had
switch
mongrel.
up off. Yeah. Now, I don't know a lot about water polo, but it is a very big sport in Western Australia, and I think they're pretty successful at it. And we do have friends who have children who have played it or still do play it. And it is, they make no secret of it. It's a very aggressive sport, both men's and women's, and it's dirty. And a lot of the time, there's a lot of stuff. It's all what goes on under the water.
Underwater, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they were talking about, having bathers ripped off and, it's kicking and, really trying to hurt your opponent.
Yeah.
To get them to get the ball. So it's
just like netball in the water.
Yeah. So it's tough. It takes some real tough cookies to do it. So Kellie is a young woman, probably about 16, 17, and living a really quite amazing life. A life that really reflects that era, I think, of, by this time, we're talking about in the 90s, when you worked hard, you worked out hard and you played hard, meaning that, athletes would go and compete and then they'd go to the pub. They'd be there together and they'd drink in that whole sort of collegiate kind of, we're a team, this is how we act, we're invincible because we're, on and off the field, a real team. So she was always part of this sort of, these gangs, as you would, not really gangs, but of women who were elite athletes, but they were hungry for success. They were hungry to have a good time, and they would go out and they would have a good time. And it was sort of no secret that a lot of them were very promiscuous, and that's not a bad thing. No one's saying it is. That they were just they lived a certain lifestyle that was, the best of everything. They enjoyed what they did and they got to go out and have a good time.
Did you say this was in the 90s?
This was the 90s, yes.
So it's just you and I at Foxtel in Sydney.
Well, it was actually, but the first person I need to tell you about is, well, sort of in the early 90s, her career as a water polo player was really taking off. And, obviously it's amateur, but she was playing for a team that was based in Balmain, actually. It's interesting you should mention it.
Oh, yeah, right. At the Dawn Fraser pool?
Probably, yeah. I've seen footage of them in there because I thought, ooh, yeah, it sort of freaked me out a little for a second. Do you know what I mean? I'm always like, isn't that just part of the harbour? Ooh. I was like, oh, where's the nice safe chlorine thing when nothing murky can be, or, in the murky water? But I did actually say they must have been in Dawn Fraser Pool. You're quite right. And these girls would compete. I saw stuff where they'd come to Perth, they'd been to Canberra, so they'd be at the Australian titles, and they were a really good team. And lots of people remember Kellie because she was, very vivacious, great team member, obviously very talented, and she was very memorable, I'd imagine. She's not the kind of person that you wouldn't remember. So lots of people have recollections of seeing her at these meets and watching her compete. They would be in finals, grand finals. They won grand finals. It was just what they did. So they were always in the pool and they were always competing week in, week, training all week. And then off to the pub they'd all go. And one of the things that made me laugh, I was talking about the town hall and I was like, oh my God, I remember going to that pub. It's, just one of those things where you hear something and you think, how do I know that name? And it's like, because I used to drink there. So the reason I bring this up and talk about what she was wearing, the fact that she was in the pool and the fact that she was, basically playing one of the most aggressive sports that you can in a bathing suit as well, is that in 1992, she found herself pregnant. And she was pregnant to her then boyfriend, a gentleman by the name of Aaron Thyak. They were very much in love, like a real sort of, typical first relationship, young love. They, were really dedicated to each other. Loads of photos of them that, they could have been friends of yours. It just looked like photos of that era. Gorgeous young couple. And they freaked out when they found out they were pregnant and decided it wasn't something they would in any position to do anything about. So he took her down to the ferry and she went into the city and had a termination and returned.
Good for
and they
them.
stayed together. Yeah. And she continued to play water polo. At that point, I don't know that she would have been showing, but no one was aware of that. It was just something that happened. So then we move on to mid-1994. So we're now 2 years later. After an affair with a married man, she finds herself pregnant again, a second time.
I'm not sure you find yourself pregnant. Like, I just think that phrase, it's not like,
whoops.
like sometimes you find $20 on the ground.
Or like maybe 10 in your pocket, in your jacket.
Yeah, you don't find yourself pregnant.
You walk around a corner and go, look in the mirror and go, oh my God. Oh, to be fair, there have been plenty of times that I have walked around a corner, looked in the mirror and gone, Jesus, Carla, you look pregnant. That's actually a very apt statement for me, I think. So, again, there's not much information that I know about this except to say that, yet again, she sought a termination and no one was aware of it. There is talk that it was as a result of an affair with a married man, but I can't find anything to that effect. It's just that that's what happened. So, again, no one's aware of any of this.
Didn't you say she was having an affair with a married man and she found herself pregnant?
Yeah.
But it might not have been his?
We don't know.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's just there's no detail on that. That's the one thing I have read.
So there could be another.
I think I did read somewhere that she said that, she wouldn't necessarily have known exactly whose child it was at any given time because I think she was having a fair bit of sex. Let's put it that way.
Okay, good for her.
And she was, good for her, I reckon. I have no problem with that. So that's 1994. In early 1995, the team competes at, I don't know, like at a grand final level. I believe they win and they go to the pub in Balmain to celebrate. And Kellie leaves and they think, oh God, she's left. They're all quite pissed. She's gone. Where's she gone? Well, she's gone to have a baby. And this is where I just cannot get my head around this. And I have seen so many people interviewed as a result of this scenario, which were people they spoke to coaches, managers, ex-teammates, all of these various people to say, well, she was playing in a bathing suit, an aggressive sport, in water. You must have seen that she was pregnant, of which I would say none of the coaches, the managerial staff, whatever else, they all say they had no idea at all, none at all. Whereas a couple, like very few actually, but a few colleagues, teammates have come out and said that they did see her, slide into the pool. I'm like, if you were training 3 times a week and play, it would be not just once sliding into the pool, but she was able to somehow conceal that she was that pregnant and play a grand final.
If I was looking at someone in a bathing suit playing water polo, the clue as to whether or not they're pregnant wouldn't be how they get into the pool. It would be
The big lump.
Yeah, yeah. And like I've got a friend who was diagnosed as pregnant at 8 months. She'd had some issues for a long time and had
Yeah.
tests done and everything. And it wasn't until she was 8 months pregnant that she found out that she was pregnant. But she didn't get around in a bathing suit, and she wasn't an athlete who was at the national level kind of thing.
No. So there's photos of her at that time, right? So there's all of these girls standing together in photographs, and like she's never standing up like that. She's either bending down, crouched in, leaning in, or whatever else. And if you look at her face the entire time, and I've seen her, pregnant in a couple of these during this time, you can't see it as such because they're big girls. You know what I mean? They're not. I think they carry weight in a different way potentially.
Right.
And I've also read that potentially their stomachs, because they're so muscular.
I was going to say there's a lot of abdominal muscle.
Yes, it changes. So it's not. But I mean. And all people carry babies totally differently, and even from one pregnancy to the next. So we can all work that out. But we're not all in bathing suits at 9 months, water polo grand final.
But we're also not all quite consciously trying to hide the fact that we're pregnant too.
I think if I'm in Turkey having a swim in my bathing suit, I could realistically be accused of being 9 months pregnant.
It's just a poo baby.
But that's
precisely.
Yeah, that's well. It's more than a poo baby. It's like it's a wine baby.
It's a COVID baby.
But I mean, isn't that just? I just find that remarkable that she was at the pub with the girls, and
it's incredible.
Not like, there are very few things that women miss. That's where I find so much of this. I just cannot get my head around it. Women in competitive sport as well. They would have been so aware of each other's bodies and. I don't know. I just find it really difficult. And one of the interesting things was when they went to talk. So this documentary series that I watched, obviously it comes after, it's only been done the last couple of years. And when they contacted all of the girls that she'd played with, like so many of them were like, nah, hung up, no, don't want to be involved, don't want to know, don't want to know, don't want to know. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because they don't like Kellie as a person, what's happened, if they don't want to be involved, or they were able to literally turn a blind eye and they were sort of part of this thing where they just didn't care because they were winning or at all, beggars belief really. So she's pregnant, right, for a third time. This time there has not been a termination. And where are we? We're in 1995.
And sorry, she doesn't know who the father is, or she does?
Well, I'll tell you that. Kellie, she has a boyfriend at the time. 19-year-old Kellie Lane gives birth to her first child at King George V Hospital at Camperdown in Sydney. She had just played the grand final of a water polo competition, and I mean just that afternoon. The baby is quietly and lawfully adopted out, and her boyfriend at the time, Duncan Gillies, is named as the father, but that was without his knowledge. So what we're being asked to believe here is that this girl has played a water polo final and just got herself off at 19 years old to a hospital in Sydney, just turned up at casualty and said, I'm going into labour.
When you say what we're being asked to believe, like that's fact though, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, but right. I mean, it's just...
It's what we're being asked to believe.
That's what all of this stuff, it's like...
It's not fake news.
I mean, it would take... This is where it comes down to, and I've heard her speak of this, and she says a lot of what happened and the way she handled certain situations were she was so used to having to be so tough and being told what to do and respect coaches and perform and do things in a way that she just handled things in a way I think that potentially... I couldn't have coped. Do you know what I mean? I just would have been in pieces. But she just took herself off to a hospital down the street from the pub and had a baby, was missing obviously for a couple of days. And I just don't understand a lot of this. And then she was able to lawfully adopt a baby. Well, I am adopted, and from everything that I can cover and friends who are trying to adopt babies and things like that, it's quite complicated. You don't just rock up and go, oh, here's one, add it to the pile of to be adopted. Do you know what I mean?
For all you know, she'd organised that prior to actually giving birth, though.
I don't think she did.
Yeah, I
really don't think she did, because they had to go back through all the records. And in the records, I think it's at this point that she says that she's visiting from Perth, or that she just says stuff. And I don't know if it was sort of because it preceded us all having mobile phones and whatnot. She seems to be able to sort of get away with it with a fairly loose story.
If you give birth to a baby and you don't want it, is it reasonable to expect that it would get adopted pretty quickly? You wouldn't have to go home with it and look after it, would you?
No, I don't think you have to do that, but I think there's a period of time. I think you get a cooling off period. So, for instance, in my situation, there was a cooling off period. So my natural mother knew that she was going to adopt me straight up.
Yeah.
She wasn't in a position, she'd had other children, but she wasn't in a position to keep me. So I was kept in the hospital for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But I don't.
But is that what happened
more
here, or is that?
I don't know.
Yeah. What I'm wondering is it just that she gave birth and went, I don't want it, you're going to have to adopt it, and they went, all right, we'll.
And the baby was in the hospital for a while.
So
I guess so. Yeah. That wasn't all done in.
Because you would have to go.
Right.
There's that breastfeeding or the feeding process that I just don't think you would hand a baby over to someone who couldn't breastfeed and go, there you go. You'd stay in the hospital until you got through some of that.
Because not everybody breastfeeds anyway. That's kind of neither here nor there. It's more a case of they would have supplies in a hospital to do certain things. And they would have
make sure they're healthy. Before...
Do we want to talk about wet nurses? Probably not.
Nice. I don't know if they had wet. Yeah. Anyway,
Betty, have you seen that in Little Britain?
I forgot about that. I had forgotten about it. Cool.
Betty.
Oh, stop.
So now,
so
she's been successfully able to adopt this baby. So now she's 19 years old. She's competing at a national level, and she's been pregnant 3 times and had 1 child. And apparently, no one knows. Okay, no one. Not a boyfriend, not a parents, not her.
The boyfriend doesn't even know he's the father of said baby.
No. So let's assume that she is concealing it to a certain point. I mean, she mustn't look overtly pregnant, but
you know that stuff you put on your face called concealer? Can you get one of those for pregnancy?
Baby concealer.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if that were the case, I'd have bucket loads of it here to cover that up.
We're talking early 90s, and, the fashion of the time were
Correct.
high-waisted jeans and
baggy
blouses
tops.
And baggy tops and things like that. So I think dressed, it would have been pretty easy to conceal the pregnancy.
Not in the water polo
I've seen photos
team,
of her.
No.
Not in the bathers. That's where it gets tricky.
Yeah,
because then you think, gosh, and then there was a woman who was interviewed who was, I think she was an ACT coach, and she was happy to be interviewed, and she said, I knew she was pregnant. She said there was talk of it. There were people talking about it. And she said, I remember saying something to their coach, who was a male, saying, what's happening with Kellie Lane? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, I've heard that she's pregnant. Oh, the lady said, I've heard that she's pregnant. And he said, I've raised it with her and she's not. End of story. So, I don't know.
Yeah, right. So she's just denying it regardless and probably doesn't.
Well, anyway,
but
the same people, the same people when interviewed, the coach and that, they're saying they had no knowledge of it. This is another coach from another team saying I asked. So who knows what was really right. But anyway, everybody seems to be in line. All the women now, as older women, all cry when spoken to and say, I wish we had have said something, we were ignoring it or whatever else. So of the ones who thought they'd seen something. But no one said anything. No one walked up and said, are you okay? Or are you... Yeah, no one.
Are you up the duff?
Are you bloated?
Frida, you slack-ass smile. What have you been up to? I mean,
it's
puberty blues. I mean, the girls are manly. It's not like they're going to be angels. You know what I mean? They're gone to McKellar Girls' Home, and no, not at all. This is not little ladies that lunch. It's like athletes who, rough and tumble, like to drink, like to have a root. They like their life.
Like to have a root.
Yeah,
that's that
stereotype, isn't it?
It is a little bit like that. They're competitive and, they're probably
competitive in the pool, competitive in the bed.
Yeah. Correct. And a lot of them, it would appear, had partners who were athletes as well, the rugby players.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The other water polo players. It was, it's a real scene. Not that I would ever know, but from what I've seen when I was at uni and been around those people, absolutely, they kind of stick together. Why wouldn't they? Okay, so 95. Now we need to move ahead to 1996. And in early 96, Kellie gets a job as a teacher at Ravenswood, which is a private girls' school in Sydney. And they love her. Could you imagine? Here's this, young, attractive.
She's a PE teacher.
Correct. Yep. So she was at the University of Newcastle for a while, but I don't think she actually ever graduated. But then on the website for the school...
Did she have a dip head?
No, I think it was more like PE, so...
She only had to do an arts degree and then she could do a dip head on top.
Yeah, for a year. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you didn't have to have you have to have
here we go. She enrolled in an arts degree, you're right, at the University of Newcastle.
There you go.
From which, but she dropped out and then went on to study at the Australian College of Physical Education while working part-time at Ravenswood School for Girls as a water polo coach. She went on to hold a position as sports convener at Ravenswood, where her credentials are listed in the school yearbook as a degree qualified teacher with honours. I don't know that she would have had time to do that.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Well, she
What a
dropped out.
load of
Correct.
old shit.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Don't hold back. Tell me what
Oh,
you
yeah.
really
fuck
think.
So what?
me. Fake
so
resume.
Probably, yeah. So at this time in her life, she is going out with a rugby union player who, I don't know what level he played at, but I suspect he was probably quite a high level. So she's got that. She's got the job at the exclusive girls' school, who they probably just all adore her because she's playing for Australia at this point, water polo, and life's probably pretty good on the Insular Peninsula, as they call it.
Insular
But as someone
Peninsula.
says, when everybody knows your business, that's when you've got to start, keeping secrets. At this time in 96, she actually travels to Canada, the end of the year, where the Australian team win a silver medal. So she really is at the top of her sport at this point. And then on the 12th of September in 1996, same year, she gives birth to a daughter.
She finds herself pregnant again.
Why can't she just use condoms
Doesn't-
like other
I-
women?
Maybe.
Or go on the pill.
It's very
I reckon what's happening is that the women water polo sides are playing after the men, and the men are ejaculating in the pool, and she is super
that's it.
fertile that she just finds herself
Yeah.
pregnant.
Mm.
And the chlorine doesn't kill the swimmer.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
know, it's so soon after. Like, it's got to be something like that, because surely the alternative is just ridiculous, as opposed to my theory, which is not ridiculous.
Really sound
that's
and
right.
quite scientifically
that's
proven
right.
to have happened
It's-
on many
Yeah,
occasions.
we've all
Never.
know people who've had that.
So
Swanny's not in.
There's not even listening to that.
I wasn't even listening to it. I'm trying to get my head around the delivery of this baby. What did you say? Was it worth repeating?
It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Is it a laboya birth in the pool?
What did you say?
What did you say?
Was it worth
Good
repeating?
repeating.
Is the best bit.
Unlikely.
Oh, darling.
Yeah.
Unlikely.
Continue.
All right. So after 4 failed attempts to be induced. Now this is what I don't quite understand. I've
What?
read this, but at Ryde Hospital.
Is it serious that you even have a failed attempt to be induced?
That's what I don't quite understand. As I'm reading that, that's why I was a bit quiet. I was like, I don't know if I should even say that because I don't know that I can. I can't back it up. I don't even know what that would look like.
You can.
I've been induced very successfully, and it was very, hard and fast and very nice.
No, it cannot work. One of my sisters tried to be induced and couldn't. The baby wouldn't come out. She
Right.
wanted a natural birth, and she ended up having to have a cesarean.
Yeah.
So, I believe that is possible.
Yeah, right. I'm not the
Okay.
expert in that, clearly.
I don't know. There's a switch here. She's in Ryde Hospital, but the baby, and the baby is called Tegan. Tegan Lee Lane was delivered at around 38 weeks at Auburn Hospital. So that was on the September the 12th, 1996. So she was, I think, 20 at the time. Yeah. 2 days later, she leaves the hospital and she actually goes to a wedding that afternoon with her boyfriend. And she turns up at the wedding and there's footage of her, like it's filmed when they walk into church. She's in an all-white country road suit. And then she goes off to the reception afterwards and has a great time.
After she's just had a baby?
Apparently.
She's
No one-
remarkable.
She is quite remarkable.
She's got a trampoline for a cooch. Just bounces.
It's like, oh,
back.
could you imagine going, oh my God, what have you been doing? I've been
A
so busy the last
trampoline
couple of
for
days.
a
I've been running
cooch.
around.
Yeah,
What's that even mean?
just bounces right back. Bounces back.
No, but
I'm
like
not gonna
cooch is
explain
like
it.
grass.
It's another word for the
For the girly
ladies
bits.
downstairs
Is it really?
area.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
What did you say it was?
Never knew that.
So it's another name.
No,
for
which
the
one? What
ladies
did you use?
downstairs
Hooch or
area.
cooch? What did you say?
Cooch.
Cooch.
Cooch. And what's the name of the grass?
Cooch.
That's cooch as well.
Oh, they're
It's
both,
spelled-
okay.
Is that like
I
if
don't
you
think
cut
it's spelled the
someone's
same.
grass?
Anyway,
Oh.
As you were.
her hoo-ha is very bouncy. Bounce right back.
Okay. So she has a baby, then off she goes to the wedding in a couple of days.
Where's the
It's
baby?
Tegan.
Where's
Yeah.
Tegan? Well, I don't know.
Where's Epony
I don't know.
Ray?
Where do you reckon Tegan would be? I don't know.
Why do you even bother naming a child if you're not even?
I reckon-
Well, it's interesting
pay
that none of the
attention
other babies had names. I don't know why this one does.
I reckon
Yeah.
Tegan's in her pouch.
I don't know why Tegan has a name, but Tegan
Tegan's
has
in
a
her
name.
pouch.
But anyway, let's not dwell on that. Let's just keep going
move on.
So she,
Okay.
so she's back to life again. Well, not that she ever stopped. She was probably doing something 5 minutes before she had this baby.
She's
then
back to life again. I missed the bit where she died.
I didn't mean that. I mean back to
Back in
Yeah.
the pool.
back to probably
No,
going out
just-
and finding someone else to impregnate her. So she's got a boy. No, but she's got a boyfriend throughout all of this.
Right.
She turns up to the wedding with Gillies. Duncan. And then I'm going to ask you just to move forward slightly. So we've gone from 96 and now we're in 1999. 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 we're up to now. In 1999.
What? She's pregnant again?
25 weeks pregnant with her third child, but fifth pregnancy. Kellie Lane flew to Queensland to seek a late-term abortion. She was refused due to the fetus being at a visible gestation. And then 3 months later, in May of 1999, Lane gave birth to a boy who she decided to put up for adoption, as she'd done with her firstborn child in 95. Lane advised a social worker that this was her first child and that Gillies was the father. Gillies denied the claims. It's like termination, adoption, baby don't know, adoption. That's who we're currently
It
at.
sounds like music. You know, you've got a termination, adoption, baby, adoption. Like, you know, just playing the piano.
Yeah.
It's all a bit hard to follow.
But interestingly, as a result of having that baby, when they go through the adoption process, docs discover that Lane, they discover her previous pregnancies, and they try and get in contact with her to discuss this. And that's when sort of a series of lies, and then she can't be contacted and whatever else. And there's this one man who is just doggedly thinking something's not right, something that's not right. And he tries to find her and says, you know, there's a baby missing. This doesn't add up.
One man who's connected to the health profession, or just some random?
To docs.
Yeah, right. Okay,
no,
gotcha.
He's a
Department of Child Services.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Of Child Services.
Yeah.
And so he ends up contacting Manly Police, and he also formally files a missing persons report for baby Tegan.
Yeah,
correct.
Right.
So that's 1999, and what then sort of starts to happen is it's never sort of like a seamless process. And what you find, so on the documentary, they really start to focus on what was happening at Manly Police Station at the time. And you've got to remember that Kellie Lane's father was a policeman in the area, remember, and had been for a long time.
Yeah.
So they were well known. Everybody knew the family. The mother had been the manager of the water polo team. So these who were heavily involved in Kellie Lane's life. She spent, she had a great relationship with her father. A lot of people said that her mum was quite scary, and having seen her interviewed, she was pretty tough.
And she didn't know that her daughter was pregnant?
No, apparently not. None of them did. Not at all. So
that sounds suspicious.
Yes, absolutely. So we're now in 2000. And guess what?
What?
She's pregnant.
She's pregnant to her new boyfriend.
She's found herself pregnant.
Yeah.
And you and I are also in Sydney with her at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, yes. This is where it all starts to overlap.
When you say she's pregnant to her new boyfriend, do you mean she's pregnant and she has a new boyfriend? Or is she actually pregnant to her new boyfriend?
I don't know the difference to what you said.
Well, one of them,
did the boyfriend produce
father.
the child?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Correct. I think that
happened to be going out with her when she got pregnant again.
Yes, because I think that there certainly seems to be some question marks over all of the time that she was certainly a little bit unfaithful.
It was another water polo baby.
Gillies. Yeah, God.
She was busy.
But so she's pregnant now for a 6th time.
Is she Catholic?
I don't know. It doesn't say anywhere that she was. There's no talk of anywhere about religious or contraception or anything like that. She just kept this all to herself. She just...
Well, I don't think she did. Like she...
Well, yeah, she's right. Somebody must have noticed something.
I think her flower wouldn't look... It would look like a rough flower by now, wouldn't it?
Moving right along. In February of 2001, so I said that she was pregnant at the back end of 2000, an investigation begins into Tegan's disappearance. And in her first interview with officers in Manly, they do not realise that she's actually 7 months pregnant then. So she does wear baggy clothes. She is a big build, all of those things, but they haven't got any idea either. And then she does go on to have that child, and she keeps that child. There is no information on that child, and rightly so. You do not know the name of her.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a girl.
I'm guessing they're not together, the child and the parents. Hopefully not the child and the mother.
I don't know. She may be with her father. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
I really don't know.
But not the mother.
And everywhere I look, it's all suppressed. You can't find out who they are for that child's protection, I think.
Yeah.
They've started the investigation, and then by June of 2005, there is an inquest into Tegan's disappearance and suspected death. And that starts, and the coroner concludes that Tegan is most likely dead, and the case is then referred to the Unsolved Homicide Squad. So that's when Kellie finally is sent to trial. And it is just one of these situations where everybody in her life, her mum, her dad, her boyfriends, no one had any idea. So when they go back and they recount all these situations, for instance, when Tegan was born, they were all like, what do you mean? She was around us. What do you mean she had a baby and then she was at a wedding, 2 days later? We just don't. How could that be? How did it happen?
Yeah.
So what happened to baby Tegan? So we know that she was born in Auburn Hospital on September 12th, 1996. So the story has changed apparently 8 times since Kellie Lane was originally questioned about it.
8 times?
8 times. But what the gist of her story was, on the 14th, so 2 days after the baby was born, she claims that she left the hospital and went outside the hospital and handed the baby over to the baby's,
Yeah, I remember that.
yes,
weird
biological
story,
father. And he simply took Tegan with him. So when, of course, they asked who that was, that's when things got a little bit confusing, because initially...
Well, she said, who can say?
She initially said that his name was... Now, I might get this wrong because whatever she did, she flipped it. So when she was initially interviewed, she said his name was Andrew Morris. And then sometime later, years later, she said it was Andrew Norris. And then she's like, whatever else. So
It was Morris Andrew.
Exactly.
Who's that?
Well, exactly. That's the point.
Just reversed it. Oh, okay. I did not know what I missed. I was like, oh, God, I'm so sorry. I'm looking a real idiot. Oh, God. So she...
First name, last name, last name, first name. That was all I was doing. Yeah.
She simply said that she took the baby out and handed him over to Andrew Morris. Then she said that she had done that in the car park, and then later on she said that she'd done it in the foyer of the hospital. But there's no proof of any of that. And obviously they looked extensively to find this Andrew Morris. And she said that she'd had an affair with Mr. Morris whilst she was still dating Gillies. And it's interesting. So a lot of what I was watching on TV was about this affair that she had with him. So she said when she was interviewed by the police the first time, when she was pregnant with the 6th child, during the police interview, Lane claimed that she had given Tegan to the baby's father, a man called Andrew Norris, or Morris, with whom she claimed to have had a brief affair. According to Lane, the affair took place at a unit block in Balmain on Friday nights, Friday nights plural, after a drinking session at the Town Hall pub, the Townie. Lane alleges in her police interviews Norris's long-term partner, Melanie, also lived there, as she often saw female apparel strewn around the unit. According to Lane, Melanie was in retail, although she was not present at the unit on Friday nights. During the police interviews, Lane claimed that she felt forced to hide her pregnancies because of the fear of the reaction of her parents and friends, as according to investigations, she could not be sure who any of the fathers of the babies might be. She told police she handed the baby over to Morris in the Auburn Hospital car park, but later changed his story to state it was inside the foyer. It was reported that during the police interviews, Lane said several times she felt alone when she became pregnant and told her mother in an intercepted phone call, "I had no other choice," referring to why she gave the baby to Norris. Manly police referred the matter to the coroner in 2005. So what ends up happening is they have a trial, but remember they've got no body, they have no weapon, they have no...
Motive?
Well, maybe a motive. Their motive, they're saying, is perhaps it was because she was just trying to get rid of the baby so that she could be considered for the Olympic squad, but... that's the only thing that comes up time and time again.
Even that's sketchy because she gave the others up for adoption. Why would she on this occasion not do that?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
So they go to trial. The matter was heard in the Supreme Court. The Crown alleged that Lane became pregnant 5 times over 7 years during the 90s, terminating the first 2 pregnancies, placing 2 up for adoption, and allegedly murdering her baby Tegan on the 14th of September 1996. The jury heard that Lane concealed her pregnancies from her family and friends in order to protect her personal image and reputation. According to Supreme Court Judge Peter Hamill, who acted in her defence in 2006, images would have been destroyed by revelations of the salaciousness of her sex life, centering around numerous rugby players from the Manly Marlins club over which Robert Lane presided. So her dad was the president of the rugby club. And again, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if you want to go and do all that stuff, as you say, use a condom. There's contraception. It's not like it's all that hard. If you
it's not the 60s.
And if you make a mistake once,
take the pill even.
Yes, exactly. It's not like you're worried about carrying a bit of weight. You carry a baby around, all these times. Evidence heard at the trial was similar to that presented at the inquest. The Crown produced evidence that as a motive for murder, Lane was prepared to abandon her child at birth to increase her chances of representing Australia in water polo at the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. There was also evidence she believed children would interfere with her educational plans, her social life, and the regard in which she was held by parents and friends. It was alleged that at her friend's wedding on 14 September may have been a crucial factor, as Lane sought a permanent solution to a potential problem to hide the evidence of pregnancy. So they thought because she had to go to the wedding that afternoon, that was the reason that she had to deal with it. Yeah.
Wow.
On December 13, 2010, the jury found Lane guilty of lying under oath in relation to documents dealing with the adopting out of 2 babies. The jury was not able to come to a unanimous verdict on the murder charge. Under advice from Wheely, and I can't remember who Wheely is, which is going to be a problem, let's say it's a judge, the jury was given the option of returning a majority of 11-1 verdict. A little later on the same day, the jury found Lane guilty of murder of Tegan and bail was refused. Sentence procedures commenced in 2001. It was reported that a psychiatrist, Michael Diamond, who appeared before the hearing on behalf of the Crown, found no evidence of a psychiatric disorder and that Lane's decisions appeared to be based on problem solving. On December 15, 2011, she was sentenced to 18 years jail with a non-parole period of 13 years and 5 months. She'll be eligible for parole on the 12th of May in 2024.
Wow, she's nearly up.
Yeah, so she's in Silverwater, and in the documentary that I watched, she was allowed to do these 6-minute phone calls with Caro, Meldrum, Hannah, and she's kind of speaking for the first time because I didn't realise this so much, but she never testified. She didn't speak. She didn't say
Really?
Well, I think she'd already proven they probably didn't put her forward because they would have said that she was an unreliable witness because she'd already been proven to be a liar.
Yeah.
So giving testimony herself probably wouldn't have added any value to the case.
It says here
that would have been the judgment of the defence.
Throughout the various trials and investigations, Lane has always maintained her innocence, albeit without testifying under oath, but she remains in Silverwater Correctional Complex. Apparently now she has lost 30 kilos and become a vegetarian and is no longer blonde.
Did she find God?
No, she found the
That's why she's still in
MP,
there.
I think.
Oh, she's a
They
lesbian.
said she's gay for the stay. I read that. Gay for the stay, I read. A former boyfriend said, gay for the stay.
Gay for the stay.
Right,
right. So just not gone to lesbian, like because she could be lesbian and not fall pregnant every time she has sex, which would
she's
be
fine. Well, anyway,
a wise decision for her.
It does say, while life on the inside was initially a harsh adjustment for the former private school sports teacher. See, I find that a stretch because she didn't go to a private school. They had to say former private school sports teacher. I hate all that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Just for a middle class girl would have been fine. Who was given a cell in a block reserved for child murderers, and there were articles that I could see where it kept coming up saying that she was being beaten in jail. Lane now allegedly is thought of as one of the toughest prisoners in the complex, even gaining a reputation as the jailhouse queen bee.
Ah, yes, top dog.
So there you go. But she's trying to prove her innocence, and that was the whole idea that she was being interviewed for that documentary that I saw, and she was sort of publicly saying for the first time, I am innocent. There's got to be a way to prove it. And a lot of the documentary was sort of highlighting issues with the police work, of course. It's always pretty apparent. And, when they went back and interviewed the parents who, still maintain her innocence, and they were showing, actually they didn't show, they mentioned like the first interview that she had with the Manly police. And they said, to her dad, did you watch? She said, no, and I'll never watch it. I couldn't do that. They've basically set her up. She should have had a lawyer with her. I cannot believe that. And because she'd never told her parents about anything, no one could help her. Do you know what I mean? So she was really on her own. So there is so much more to this story, and, could go on for hours, but I didn't really want that to be the case. I just wanted to tell this story, which I just find...
It's an incredible
remarkable,
story.
Really. I really do. And because I had no idea, I didn't know what I was starting to watch, what I was starting to get into. Do you know what I mean? I thought, all right, I understood that there was a baby that got missing, but it's the context of all the pregnancies either side and around it, and the life that she was leading. That's what I find fascinating, that it could all be undertaken in such a public forum, in such a... When you're pregnant, I don't know how you do it that often. And and do what you do as a day gig, to be a world-class international water polo player.
After all the stuff that you've read, do you think she's guilty?
I really hope she's not. I would love this to be a story where she's not. She's definitely a pathological liar, though. She's lied so often. And that's where I think people find it really difficult. And I did read somewhere, being, a serial liar, it doesn't make you a murderer. That's it.
100%
You can't make
doesn't.
that straight. Yeah. So I don't know. How can you sentence someone? I mean, it feels like there's so many inconsistencies with one country, one court.
Yeah.
With all the different cases that we look at. I would have thought this would not have necessarily been a murder charge because they don't have
There's no baby, no
weapon, no real motive. There's speculation, of course, about what the notice.
So she's
been.
in hospital, and they say that she says that she handed the baby to someone. Was that as she was checking out of the hospital?
No. Well, the morning of the day she checked out. So that was on the 14th, she said, yeah. In April 2011, following her conviction for murder, a Sydney taxi driver, I love this, at this point, a Sydney taxi driver came forward and alleged that he drove Kellie to an area of bushland where she abandoned the child.
What?
The man is said to have contacted, I love this. The man is said to have contacted Sydney criminal lawyer Chris Murphy. He's the celebrity one, right, that everyone goes to get off everything, I think, and outlined a series of events that took place on September 14, 1996. He claimed he picked Kellie up from Auburn Hospital, at which point she was carrying a newborn baby. Kellie is said to have asked him to stop on River Road on the way to Manly, where she allegedly left the baby. He told Murphy that after he dropped her off, I presume he means at her final destination, he noticed she'd left a baby bag in the car. When he reminded her, Kellie allegedly said, "I don't need it," and left. The taxi driver then said he drove back to the area of bushland and found a baby girl lying next to a tree with a bottle beside her. He said he left her in the care of another woman who insisted she would mind the baby.
What?
Kellie has denied his account. I'm like, what part of that is right? Oh, I went back. I let her leave the baby. Then I took her to her final drop-off. Then I said, I'll take your baby bag. I don't think she would have had a baby bag, would she? If she had gone into hospital totally unprepared with nothing, she wouldn't have had a baby bag,
Wouldn't have thought so.
I find that hard to believe. No. And then why did he then leave the baby but drop her off, and then he went back? And who's this other woman who just turns up next to a tree in the bush going, oh, okay, oh, don't worry, I've got it from here. And he goes, oh, okay, then as long as someone's
She's the mother of the forest, and she looks after all the newborns. And like, what?
So I presume that never went any further, but that's, and very after she'd been found, albeit random, but
that's just someone wanting a bit
I think so.
attention.
But how crazy
One
is
other
that?
question. What's the deal with the 11-1 conviction? Is that normal? I would have thought that's not. I always thought we had to have unanimous decisions for murder.
Yes, I've never heard of such a thing. I didn't really understand what I was even reading when I was reading that. I was like, why did you was it not working in your favour? So you went, oh, actually, we'll change it. It's not, 3-2, it's got to be 4-1, that kind of thing. I didn't understand that either.
That's weird.
I wonder where else I could find more information on it. But yes, it does say the jury was not able to come to a unanimous verdict on the murder charge under advice from Wheelie. I need to find out who he is.
That'd be the judge, you're right.
The jury was given the option
of not finding her legally guilty. Yeah. We'll just change the law. You can, 11-1. How about 10-2?
Well, if someone gave you that option, wouldn't you have thought, he really wants us to get this sorted? I reckon we better do it. All right, a little later on the same day, surprise, surprise, the jury found Lane guilty of murder of Tegan. So there are, I don't know what you'd call them, bodies with people who look at crimes who they don't think have been investigated correctly or
like the Justice Project.
And they are certainly representing her. But I mean, she hopefully, I say hopefully, I find it all very bizarre, but who would you like to sentence someone, Schmitty, Clarkie? What do you think?
I think you're right. It is a very curious case.
It is. I kind of, when I was sort of thinking about how am I going to present it and what do I really want to ask of you, at the end I just wanted you to be as baffled as I was in one respect, because I'm just so blown away by this
with
case.
What you've said to me, if I was on the jury, I reckon I'd go she's innocent, unless there's bits that that maybe you didn't get to talk about, which is fine too. But it just sounds like there's no, like, she's got 2 terminations, which in my view are not murder, and I know other people have different views on that.
Yeah, I don't.
She's had a baby and adopted it out. Then she's murdered a baby, and then she's had a baby and adopted it out. So the inconsistency,
and had a baby and kept it.
The inconsistency is the one that is missing, that we're alleging that she murdered. She's got no history, in my view, of doing any of that. She's got a history of doing a whole lot of things that you could or may not want to judge her for.
Yeah, she's a root rat, you know.
Good luck to her. But the baby that is missing, I don't see that as, with beyond reasonable doubt, as being murdered. And therefore I kind of go, what? I don't know. I'm not cool with that. Schmitty, what do you think?
No, it doesn't sit comfortably. What do you think?
You mean you're not convinced she did it?
Correct. Yeah, 100%. I'm not convinced.
Just on your other question about the 11 to 1. So in New South Wales, whilst the law does state that we generally would look for a unanimous vote, if you have a hung jury, which is basically where you cannot get a unanimous vote, the judge can provide the jury with the option of going 11 to 1, which is called a majority. So it's actually set in New South Wales legal precedents.
It sounds,
just to explain that.
I know that, like Reggie said to us, that you can have
that one up their sleeve if they need it.
No, for some crimes, there's you don't need a unanimous one. But I thought, certainly in Victoria, I thought murder was one of those ones where you did have to have unanimous. Maybe it's different.
Also interesting. So in New South Wales, it's where the crime is against the state, of which murder is a crime against the state, then you can have a majority vote. But if it is a Commonwealth crime, a crime against the Commonwealth, which has got different criteria, then you'd have to have a unanimous vote. So it's just weird.
I feel like murder's a crime against the victim, not the state.
I think it's who's bringing it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, of course. Who's representing? Yeah.
I'm a bit torn on it too, because it feels to me like there's something nefarious underneath it all that no one's got to the bottom of. And I'm going to cast some nasturtiums here, but, you know, like that whole, the power base of the family with, you know, like her behaviour is weird. Her lying is weird. She's grown up in what sounds like a very controlled environment with all, you know what the sporty,
very successful, very push, push, absolutely.
And
your mum's the manager, and the mum, whoa, she was, hold no prisoners. She's scary.
And everyone in that area, in that sort of sphere, is similar. So hiding a pregnancy doesn't surprise me. Doing it as well as she did surprises me, and that people say that they didn't know about it surprises me. They probably did and turned a blind eye. And I just find it weird because, yes, she terminated some of her pregnancies when she tried to with one of them, but when she couldn't, she adopted them. So I just don't understand why she would. And she adopted one before and another one after.
Yeah.
Why would she kill this child? If it's all about solutions driven. She has a solution. She could have just walked out of the hospital.
Yeah. Correct, and gone to the wedding and then dealt with it. She'd done that before. That's what I find odd.
It doesn't make sense to me. And if I were on that jury, there'd have to be a hell of a lot more evidence that's not circumstantial or just the fact that she lied for me to go, there is beyond reasonable doubt that she's done this. So I find it really tricky. I'm not convinced. No, I'm a bit like you, Clarky. I think there's a Netflix documentary under this.
Yeah.
And I know you said someone's already making one, Carla, but I think this is a bit like making a murderer or something. It's weird. And look, we do know that she's a prolific liar, and therefore, even if she states her innocence, we also know there are lots of serial killers who said that they never did anything, and DNA and whatever has proven they have. The fact that baby's never shown up is weird. That no one's come forward to say, look, my child is this person.
Because they would be protected. They wouldn't, if you were the ones who came on, they said, the baby's been found or whatever else, you wouldn't be subjected. They'd have to protect
There's only some other scenarios which are really gross about, like if the child ended up in completely the wrong hands and ended up dead, yes, those people will not come forward and say, we took the child. You know what I mean? So there are options as to what happened to poor baby Tegan. But I mean, what did she, apart from crazy man saying that he drove her to the bushland off River Road, but what did she do? Throw it in the bin? Sorry, throw
I don't
her in the
know.
bin?
I
Like,
know.
I mean, how do you murder and dispose of a child in a hospital and then nip off to
And
a
get off to a
wedding?
wedding.
Yeah.
I don't know. And this is where a lot of the stuff, or not a lot of the stuff, I wasn't able to look at a whole lot of it, but there were lots of people's backyards being dug up and this, that, and the other, and them looking for a body. They went to her boyfriend at the time's place, and they never found anything. But there was other stuff that had to support going to court. In terms of going and trying to find baby Tegan for the coronial inquest, and they just have not been able to.
And there was no CCTV. I suppose it's all too late. By the time they started to look into this child, you wouldn't have kept records of
for
her
years ago.
being there and leaving. Yeah.
I could see a way where she might have done it, but I can't see a way where it definitely happened.
It's definitive.
And
that's
I'd
kind of where
almost
I'm
be
at. It's
more
like,
comfortable if
sure.
she was off walking around and we all thought, I think you did it, rather than having her in jail.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a really interesting and weird one.
Yeah, it is. Very, very.
So I don't even know how to sentence it because I'm not even sure she's guilty, apart from maybe just...
I know that's a tricky thing, isn't it? I don't even know what I'm
I
asking
think
to do.
what I see
I
is...
think maybe we just need to put her on the pill for a start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you've got the baby maker, treat it with a bit of respect. Like, you just because you can have children doesn't mean you should. And she could have made some decisions that would have not got to this. And I am not 100%. I'm not anti-abortion. In fact, I'm very pro-abortion. I completely understand that people fall pregnant. They might find themselves pregnant. But I just think that, by baby number 3, you'd like to think that she's got a strategy in place to go, I probably will take the pill.
I've worked out how that works. I know what happens.
I'm not
going to
find myself pregnant anymore because I know how it works now.
I think that she was definitely guilty of making bad decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And also acting...
Not taking good action. But
I'm also not comfortable with the fact that a woman can go and have a baby and say that someone's the father without the father having any input in that. I think that's awful.
I agree with that.
I didn't really know that was a thing. I thought that there would have to be some level of proof if the father isn't there to say, yes, that's mine.
I agree with you obviously with the point you're making, but it also made me think when I was looking at it, I mean, to get anything done, how many sources and items of proof of ID and this, that, and the other, a bill for that and a bill for that, and your name on this and your name with that address.
100 points.
Imagine just rocking up and going, I can't give you 100 points, but here's a baby. Okay. What's your name? My name's Desiree.
Yeah.
Where are you from? From the other side of the country. Where you found it? And who's their dad? John Smith. I mean, that's what it sounds like happened in the hospital.
And imagine being...
You could say whatever you like.
Poor Duncan, like 5 years later going, what? I'm the father? What do you even mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just... That is just a blight on society where we think it's okay to be that frivolous about fatherhood.
Yes.
Sorry, the counter argument for that is, okay, so I've named Paul Clark as the father of my child. And
unfucking likely, hey?
And he says, I've got no interest in this child, so no,
Correct.
I'm not.
And that would be more often the case.
So that's the problem, is the counter argument that the father won't take responsibility and therefore says, no, nothing to do with me. And then what do you do?
So
the child just has no father.
Well, no. But so in a like, if then there's a legal case or a legal requirement, then maybe you do have to do paternity testing. But what I'm saying is that it shouldn't be just that frivolous that no one's even being asked to confirm it. It's just one person saying, "Here's the child's family line," and sure, let's go with that. I find that incredible.
All right. Well, I don't know what to do or sentence about it. I'm just going to leave with a public service announcement that says
like you, Clarky, I don't actually have a problem with people who need to avail themselves of terminations for various reasons, but using it as a form of contraception isn't cool.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that is probably more what we had with this lady. And
Yeah,
so my
yeah.
public service announcement is to say there are plenty of options for
Yes.
women to not fall pregnant in this day and age. Please
Yeah.
avail yourself of them.
I think we could sentence her to sterilisation. I'd
I thought
probably.
about it earlier, but then I thought, what if she's not actually guilty, and that's pretty harsh.
Well,
but
I
suppose
think
she is guilty of
two
frivolous
abortions,
fucking.
the two adoptions, just stop getting pregnant. Have all the fucking you want, just don't make babies out of it. So I'd go that.
Yeah, maybe.
Or I could sentence her to a future of only lesbian sex, and that's just to stop her getting pregnant. That's not I don't care whether she's lesbian or not.
You're not
but
casting dispersions on.
No, go for you, lesbians. Good for you. I just think that just don't have babies as a result of your sex if that's what you want to do. Like, because that's the problem. She's having babies from her sex, not the fact that she's having sex.
Yeah,
just deal with that. Fuck.
Well, I might go a step further then and send her off to trial by Wine World, and let's assume she's not a nutcase.
Yeah.
And we'll give her all of her children, and she has to raise them.
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
That'll keep her busy.
Yeah.
She could almost make a water polo team out of her children.
She could.
They're probably gutsy little buggers too.
Yeah, I bet they are tough. Yeah.
Tough.
All right, well, Swanny, that was quite the story. And yes, I did remember it. And I knew it
I
had
thought you
something to
would.
do with children, but I couldn't remember. I knew that when you said about her physique, I thought, yeah, I remember looking at this woman. But yeah, no, it was really good.
There's
It
some
was
pictures where
intriguing.
she's gorgeous when she was, but like that Aussie athlete,
As you
you
said,
could
the
back her on the, what do you call it, pool deck.
Yeah, Lisa
yeah.
Curry
Was it
Kenny.
Lisa Curry Kenny.
That
kind of-
totally that look, yeah.
Yeah.
She did, what's they call it, poolside. She looked like she should be poolside.
Yeah. Yeah, good one. So, thank you very much, and miss you already.
See you next time.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Arrivederci. Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.